Hello, my stamping friends. This is Renae Novak at BlessedByCards.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, and I'm here today with another Make It Monday tutorial. Today I'm going to share with you two techniques on how to create some watercolor background. Now I'm going to give you a warning, actually two warnings. The first is this is a very messy kind of project, so I hope that this will work on camera in my limited space here. And secondly, I'm not very good at this, so you'll just have to see if you can perfect your technique and get the look that you want. Each one that I have tried has turned out differently, and I'm going to share with you at the end of this video a few different samples from the things that I've created. So let's get started on what we need. And there are three things that I highly recommend for this project. The first one being watercolor paper. You need to use watercolor paper. It's extremely important so that it will absorb the water and distribute the color. The second thing is a stamparatus. If you're going to create a card from your background creation and stamp on it, you're going to need the stamparatus so that you can get a dark image. Because the watercolor paper is porous, it's difficult for the ink to absorb into it. So you'll need to stamp it several times, and the stamparatus is a perfect tool for that, getting it exactly where you need it to be time and time again. And then the last thing I recommend is liquid glue. And because our watercolor paper is thicker, it bevels up a little bit as it gets water on it, and when you can heat it to flatten it out some, and you can use a large acrylic block to flatten it, but it also it just does that by nature, and the liquid glue helps to keep it to the cardstock for your finished project. Okay, so the first technique you probably already know is just a simple water wash, so I'm not going to show that on camera, but you would just take your water painter and you would get some water on it, or dip it in water if you prefer. Get your color from your palette, whatever you've created. You can use reinkers, or you can use an acrylic block in the ink like I'm going to do soon. And get your color and then just kind of paint it on your paper. That's the basic technique that probably everyone knows. But this technique that I'm going to share with you for a unique background is using the actual acrylic blocks. And again, it's very messy, so bear with me. Now this is a spritzer, and what you want to do is not spray yourself in the face, but you want to get your paper nice and wet. And again, this is very messy, so I'm hoping you can see it. So you want to get your paper nice and wet. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take an acrylic block. I took a small one. I'm using Granny Apple Green and Highland Heather. And you're just going to put it right in there. And it's going to go all around. You can put it wherever you want. And again, you're going to want a lot of water. And then same thing with the green. And you're going to put it all on, and you can bring in more water if you want. You can see it's kind of starting to dry up just because it's so hot here. But you just keep stamping directly on, and then you can come back in with more of the mist to make it run and dribble the way you want it to go. And then that way you will be able to create a background. And again, like I said, the more water, the more it tends to pool, and you get that color. And so it looks like a hot mess, but when you put it aside to dry, it does turn out quite lovely. So let me just clean up this mess real quickly. And let me share with you a few cards that I've created using this particular technique. All right, I'm going to pull this off so that it... Okay, so the first card that I created, I used that same technique, putting the block to the watercolor paper, and I used several different colors. This one is Bermuda Bay, Crushed Curry, and Calypso Coral. And I did that very thing, and I let it dry. I did heat dry it as well. It depends on the look you want, if you want it to dry naturally, or if you want it to heat set to go a little quicker. And this is the Dragonfly Garden. I just stamped with the Stamparatus, the black, and thank you for your kindness. And again, that's Bermuda Bay, crushed curry, and Calypso Coral. Now, all of the products and all of the measurements will be available in a download PDF on my blog, so you can hop on over there to BlessedByCards.com and download that for free. So the second one is very similar. I used the Calypso Coral again, the Bermuda Bay, and the crushed curry. And I kind of separated the colors this time so they didn't run as much. On this one, they kind of overlapped and they kind of went all around. And this one, I kind of kept them more segregated so I could get that variegated look. And I mounted that on some black and some Calypso Coral. And this is from Nature's Thoughts stamp set. And the flowers in the background are the painted pansies. Okay, that's our second card. Our third card, again, this one is with Bermuda Bay and Calypso Coral. Now this one's a little bit different because I did a little more of the brush. I didn't use the acrylic block directly to the water. I kept the paper dry and I did the typical, let's just put some color on the bottom and then some color on the top. And so then I got a little water scene that I created this Well Done card. And this is from the Well Done set. Again, Bermuda Bay and Calypso Coral. And my last one is a little different as well. What I did for this one is I used some white embossing powder and I stamped that first on my watercolor paper before I did anything else. And then I heat set it. And then I used the technique of dropping the different colors on the watercolor paper. So you can you can get your watercolor paper wet, you can use the blocks, or you can just use your aqua painter to put the paint where you want it. After this one dried, I went back in with a little bit more watercolor and did some of the flowers so they would stand out to be a little more vibrant. So that is a third, another technique that you can use is use the embossing powder. And this thanks is from the Soft Succulents. And again, I used the Stamparatus to put that on. I mounted this in Flirty Flamingo because my Calypso Coral and my crushed curry, and this one I used the Pacific Point Blue. It kind of all melded, and as you can see, that doesn't really look like Calypso Coral anymore. It looks like a light pink. So I chose the Flirty Flamingo to accent this card. So this is the only one that I used the different ink. I used the Pacific Point and the crushed curry and the Calypso Coral. All the other ones were used with Bermuda Bay, Calypso Coral, and crushed curry. So that is my Make It Monday tutorial for today. A really quick tip on how to use your acrylic blocks to create these amazing background images. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos. And until next time, be blessed.